today we are doing lesson 5.5a on parallel lines. Then we will get into perpendicular lines later this week. So parallel lines are lines that will never cross. That means they have the same slope. So if we were going to look at a coordinate plane and here are two lines, they'd be like railroad tracks. If we were to extend them and keep going, they're never going to cross. They will just continue going on in the same direction. So when our equations are solved for y, in the form y equals mx plus b, our slope, m, is the same. That tells you that when you rise over run, over and over and over again, those lines are going to be exactly the same slope. So let's take a look at a couple equations. Some of them are going to be solved for y already, like this first one. It's already in the form y equals mx plus b, but this second one we're going to have to solve. So in this first one, m is 5, or as a fraction, 5 over 1, and b is 4. Over here we need y by itself, so I'm going to move this negative 15x, so I'm going to add 15x. So we have 3y equals 15x minus 6. Remember, always put your x's first. Our x term always comes first when we write equations. And then the opposite of multiplying by 3 is divide by 3. So we have y equals 15 divided by 3 is 5, so 5x, minus 6 divided by 3, which is 2. So our equation right here is y equals 5x minus 2. So m is 5, or 5 over 1, and b is negative 2. So let's graph both these lines. I'm going to start with this one on the left here. So our slope is 5 over 1, but we need to begin with b, our y-intercept. We're beginning on our y-axis at 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And our slope is rise over run. We cannot rise 5 and go 1 to the right, but we can do the opposite and go down 5 and 1 to the left. Down 5, 1 to the left. And we'll draw our line through there. There's our first equation. Our second line begins at negative 2 on our y-axis, and our slope is rise 5 over 1. I can only go up 4, so I'm going to go the opposite direction from here, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 1. So there we have our two lines. As you can see, they are parallel. They will not cross. Our words on the side here say parallel lines have the same slope, which means if they have the same slope, then they're parallel lines. So our question down at the bottom says, write another equation that would be parallel to the lines above. So if we have parallel lines, they have the same slope, so our m, in the form y equals mx plus b, m has to be 5, or 5 over 1. It does not matter what b is, so you could add or subtract any number that you want here. We could begin at negative 3, or negative 4, or negative 5, as long as the slope is the same. Those lines would be parallel. So I'm just going to say plus 10. If we begin at plus 10, even though it's not on our graph, that line would be parallel because they have the same slope. Here's our second example. We need to solve for y. So I'm going to move my x's to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 5 over 2x. And we end up with y equals negative 5 over 2x minus 2. So m in front of the x is negative 5 over 2, and b is negative 2. This should not be new. You guys should know how to graph y equals mx plus b. Our second equation, we need to distribute or multiply negative 5 over 2 times x and times negative 2. If you want to draw a box on the side to help you multiply negative 5 over 2 times x and negative 2, you can do that to help you. So negative 5 over 2 times x, just put them together, negative 5 over 2x. But negative 5 over 2 times a negative 2, well, as a fraction, put it over 1. Negative 5 multiplied by negative 2 is a positive 10. 2 times 1 is 2. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. So our answer in there is plus 5, because our two negatives made a positive. So we have, right here, y plus 1 equals negative 5 over 2x plus 5. I got that from right here. And then we want y by itself, so I'm going to subtract 1. So we have y equals negative 5/2 x plus 4. So our slope is negative 5 over 2, and b is 4. So here are our two lines that we need to graph on the same coordinate plane. I'm going to start with the one on the left. We're beginning at negative 2. And our slope is down 5, because it's a negative, and 2 to the right. Rise over run. Up and down first. Down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 2 to the right. The opposite of down and right would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up, and 2 to the left. So there's our first line. Second line begins at a positive 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And same slope, down 5, and 2 to the right. Down 5, 2 to the right. As you can see, these two lines are parallel. They do not cross. So here's another equation that is parallel to these lines. Well, it has to have a slope of negative 5 over 2. And you can add or subtract any number that you want. As long as it has the same slope, we're good. So I'm just going to say minus 7, because that line would be right here, and it would be parallel. Let's flip over to the back side. We have two more questions. I would suggest trying these on your own and then clicking play to see if you get them right, to show that you know what you're doing. So first we're going to solve for y. So just the opposite of multiplying by 2 is divide by 2. Remember, when we divide every number. So we have y equals 2x minus 5. So our slope is 2, or as a fraction, 2 over 1. And b is a negative 5. Over here, we're multiplying 2 by both of these terms. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. If you wanted to draw your box to multiply, you will still get the same answer, 2x minus 6. But then we have this minus 5 we need to get rid of, so the opposite of subtracting is adding. So we have y equals 2x, and there's more negatives, minus 1. So our slope is 2, 2 over 1, and b is negative 1. So here is our equation. We're going to start with the left side. We're beginning at negative 5 on our y-axis. And our slope is 2 over 1. Rise 2, 1 to the right. Rise 2, 1 to the right. Continue to go all the way across your page. I also went down 2 and 1 to the left to go the opposite direction. And then our second equation, second line, starts at negative 1. And we have the same slope. Rise 2, 1 to the right. Rise 2, 1 to the right. Or down 2, 1 to the left. There we go. And then down here, write another equation that would be parallel to the two lines. Y equals 2x, same slope, positive 2, and plus or minus anything. Pick any number that you would like. Last one. Here we go. We need to solve for y. So first, move our x's to the other side. I'm going to subtract 2x. And we're left with 4y equals negative 2x plus 20. And then divide everything by 4. So we have y equals negative 2 over 4. We can simplify that if we divide by 2. It's really negative 1/2 x. Plus 20 divided by 4 is 5. So our slope m is negative 1/2, and b is 5. Second equation is a little bit easier to solve. You just need to move the 1/2 x over to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 1/2 x. And we have the equation y equals negative 1/2 x minus 3. So b is -3 and m is -1/2. So if your slopes end up different, you know you made a mistake because they're telling you this whole worksheet you have parallel lines. So let's begin to graph this first one here, beginning at +5, right here, on our y-axis. And our slope is -1/2, down 1, 2 to the right, down 1, 2 to the right, positive numbers are to the right, or the opposite of down or right would be up and left. You can draw your line through there. And then the other line begins over here at -3, and same slope, down 1, 2 to the right. So these lines are parallel, they're just really far apart. They will never cross if we were to continue. And finally, an equation that would be parallel to these two lines? Well, any line that has a slope of -1/2x. So y equals -1/2x, you could put +0 if you wanted. We could have our third line go right through there. You don't actually need to graph it, you just need to write the equation of a line. Alright, good luck on your homework. It is set up very similar to what we just did.